we should probably just identify too, or just point out to being fire is pretty, or I shouldn't say pretty easy. That's kind of a too loose of a term. Is it's going to be something with physical identifiable damage, right? If something's burned, you almost always can see it, right? So that's one thing. So I like to say, just in my generic terms and as an adjuster, fire is kind of a no-brainer. You usually can see it, and then a lot of times it causes a lot of damage, and so that's not as hard. You still have to know what the repair methodology is and the pricing, so that's another challenge. Smoke now is the much more challenging one. Is it gets in places you don't know where it is. It's harder to look at. You don't know what type it is and things like that. So with smoke, it might take a different kind of expert to help you out, right? So as far as when I'm talking about cleaning, right, there's some technicians that can identify damage, help with how big the scope is. But if you actually have to clean all your ducts, that's usually a specialty company, right? It's usually a technician doesn't usually, maybe small areas, maybe they clean the inside of the unit. But if you're cleaning expansive ductwork systems in some of these homes, you're going to have some company that comes out that have specialty equipment. They're opening it up. They're physically running brushes in and out of them. They have giant vacuum systems to pull out debris. They have equipment, and these mitigation companies have equipment, things called like Vapor Shark, and these things that actually help take the odors out. You know, when odors get into the equipment and things like that. So it can be very challenging to look at all this stuff. Some people don't realize it either too, and especially like a furnace cabinet a lot of times has insulation between the equipment in the inside and the outside case. There's actually insulation to help make it more effective and efficient. If that insulation gets filled with smoke, you're in real trouble, right? You're not going to even though you might be able to physically dismantle the whole thing and put it into it, it's probably not cost effective. But how do you know that? How do you know if it's in there? How do you know, where that is? Some of them have it, some of them don't. Again, adjusters don't have x-ray visions. They're not technicians. They're not opening up these things and looking at them. So you're definitely going to want someone you trust that can get in there and help make some of these decisions. And smoke is both physical on it, but it's also about the odor as well. So sometimes you think it's clean, but if you still smell it, that house needs more help to get it back to
Sure.
pre-loss.
Well, and I was going to ask also, sometimes if equipment is damaged, say your outside unit was totally damaged, you have that replaced, you fire up your system again in your house, and now, I mean, have you seen claims in your experience where somebody has to go back out for the ductwork because, well, the unit wasn't running for a long time, and then it all of a sudden starts pushing fresh air through there, and now you kind of notice that smoke damage, the smell. Is that seen often?
I wouldn't, I don't know. I haven't seen it often. I have seen it for sure. And we've seen big claims where you had a big fire or whatever, and maybe an attic fire, the top stories are damaged and things like that. But a lot of the ductwork's either in the walls or in the basement. And in fact, we had one of our claim scenarios in a past training as well that I'm remembering off the top of my head, where that was the exact same thing. They did all the other work, and then it was like a supplement where they came back and are like, oh, we forgot. We need to do all the duct work. They wanted to replace it all. They actually got help with that one. I think HVACI went out and looked at it and said, no, we can still clean this, even though it's been a while and everything else. But it was definitely an afterthought. And it definitely happened after everything else happened. They wanted to replace everything, but it wasn't physically damaged by fire. It was cleanable. That's probably what the policy owned in that case, to bring it back to pre-loss condition, and that's what HVACI recommended in that case. So, yeah, it certainly can happen, and it doesn't happen just with smoke and fire either. A lot of times, other things happen with claims that come back around, or you have to do a supplement or something like that. But smoke's
Sure.
definitely one of them that could be high on the list of things that could happen with, for sure.
So we've been talking a lot about the cleaning portion of that, which is the best case scenario, right? Being able to clean it versus replacing all of the ductwork in a not only a residential but a commercial location as well. What is the tipping point between that clean and then kind of full replacement? Are there indicators that would lean somebody towards replacing all the ductwork versus being able to clean it?
Yeah, so most of it is, well, like most claims, most of it's going to be cost versus cost analysis, repair versus replace. they get to be the same thing, you're probably going to replace it, right? But there's also just the consideration of what type of duct it is. I talked about it a little bit earlier. I'll touch on it again here. Is there are certain types of ducts that just aren't worth cleaning, right? We have rigid fiberboard that actually has rough, basically fiberglass on the inside. You can imagine just raw fiberglass, right? Like bad insulation. If it gets wet, if it gets smoky, it gets dirty, mildew in it, things like that, that's going to be a real problem. You have to replace it all. Flex ducts, which a lot of homes have, they're easy to install. They come in long runs. They're easier. They're more cost effective, I should say. I already said easy to install. Those, even though they may be cleanable, it's not cost effective to do it. So you're going to be replacing all the flex ducts usually that are involved in things like that. So now if you have what I call rigid ducts, whether they're rectangular, square, round, metal, that can be cleaned, you're probably always going to go there first. You're going to clean it first, and then you're going to make a decision whether anything else has to be replaced. So now if you're getting into the equipment, I know we're talking about ducts, but if you get into the equipment, that's a little bit more challenging to do. Like in a furnace is, how much smoke was in there? What is it on the evaporator coil? Is it on the control boards? Is it in that insulation I mentioned? And things like that. You're definitely going to want to get some help with that. And then the pricing of it. Like, well, what's it going to cost to clean it? What's it going to cost to replace it, and get that pricing right as well? So, challenge after challenge with these types of claims for sure, as for the adjusters.